Super Bowl time is here for 2023 and the end of the 2022 season in the NFL. Arizona, that's where we are going live with Ryan Dunleavy, one of our top NFL analysts here on the channel with the New York Post. Ryan, good to talk to you live from Super Bowl Radio Row.
What's up, guys? Yeah, there's the banner behind me. In case anybody doesn't believe me, there's the banner. This is what Radio Row looks like, everybody.
There you go. And what is that? Is that like, are there like booths for all 32 teams?
No, radio stations, podcasts. No, it's not for teams. It's,
for media. For media.
105, 105.2 in Nashville, and Inside the Birds podcast, and etc. like that. So.
Yeah, I see that because I saw the Jets were out there. They had their own setup, so I guess you can have your own setup.
They're the only team I've seen with their own setup.
Wow. Okay. Well, there you go. Mark, of course, joining us as always. Mark, when was the last time you were at the Super Bowl?
Well, I've been to a couple of Super Bowls, and I've been to a few Radio Rows and done some shows from there. So I know what Ryan's going through right now. It's really, in truth, all Super Bowl week is just interviews. And it's largely, correct me if I'm wrong, Ryan, interviews with people that have agendas. They're pushing products. They're moving endorsements and things like that. So
that's what Radio Row is. Yes.
Exactly right. Exactly.
All right. So we're lucky to have Ryan on location, and we want to get as much out of him as we can here during the show. So let's get right to it. Before we get into the game, let's talk about some of the other big stories. So you tell me, Ryan, what's the big story outside of the game itself? Is it Aaron Rodgers? Is it head coaching? What is it?
You're talking about within the Super Bowl?
Outside of the Super Bowl. What is the big story that everybody seems to be talking about?
Yeah, the quarterbacks. Yeah, where they're going to go. If Brady's really retired. Aaron Rodgers, what he's going to do when he comes out of the cave in 4 days. Is he going to end up with the Jets? Is he still going to play? If the Jets are going to wait on Rodgers, which could mean losing Derek Carr if Derek Carr is going to end up in New Orleans. So as you would expect everywhere, people are talking about quarterbacks. Those two in particular, and then the draft guys, obviously, Bryce Young and what the Bears could get for the number one pick if they stick with Justin Fields.
Yeah, the whole Justin Fields thing I know is not a surprise, and considering the fact, and that's because we got a lot of time to talk about it. But in all truth, wouldn't you be surprised, Ryan, if Chicago in fact traded Justin Fields?
I'd be surprised because they're pushing the narrative that they're not going to trade him. I think that's the wrong decision. I would trade him. I would start over. I have a new head coach. I have a new GM who didn't draft the quarterback. I'd start. You were 3-14 last year. I would start over with the new rookie quarterback contract. Justin Fields didn't wow me with his passing ability. Obviously, he can run, but he didn't wow me as a passer. So no, I would start over. You wasted 2 years of Justin Fields' rookie contract. I would start over with Bryce Young. But yes, it would surprise me if they did that, because they're pushing that they won't. But I think that's the right thing. And as we know, teams often do the wrong thing.
Mark?
I'm a little bit surprised that Justin Fields is gathering all these headlines this offseason here, at least until the Super Bowl has been played. And I get what Ryan's saying about what he's done in the past. Maybe he had his best season this year of his young pro football career, but he's not your prototypical passing quarterback, which is what the National Football League desires these days. So agreed with Ryan. I wouldn't be surprised if he is indeed moved, but I also wouldn't be surprised if we see Will Anderson from Alabama wearing a Chicago Bears uniform with the number one pick this year.
Yeah, I guess a lot's also going to depend on what they could get for the pick. So.
Yeah. What I'm hearing is they're going to get a fortune. So it would surprise me if Will Anderson was the number one pick. Wouldn't surprise me if he was wearing a Bears uniform with the number 3 or 4 pick.
There you go.
But not number one. I don't see them passing up the fortune they can get to trade out.
Yeah, the Colts appear to be like a no-brainer if they finally have it in their heads that they're going to start from scratch with a quarterback. That's something that they've avoided for quite some time. So they're the most logical step up, as close as they are. And speaking with Rashad Beard, who does a great job covering the Panthers on YouTube, he convinced me. I think the Carolina Panthers are going to go heavy and hard to try to get one of those two quarterbacks. They've swung and they've missed on two or three of them over the last few years, and they are so desperate to try to get their, that Frank Reich. You just said it. Start over. You got Frank Reich starting over with a rookie quarterback. It just depends on whether or not Carolina is going to have the ammunition from 9 to outbid Indianapolis at 4.
Don't forget Atlanta at 8.
Yeah, that all depends on whether or not we have to obviously go through free agency first. So once we go through that, are the Falcons, are the Colts, are the Panthers, are they going to sign or make a deal for one of these quarterbacks? I mean, Lamar Jackson's the big story. He's really the big one. And, he's been tied to Atlanta. It makes a lot of sense if he gets traded to Falcons. It'd be a perfect spot for him with their running offense. But we got to see what they do first, because I believe that that's probably what's going to happen. I think Atlanta's going to try to get a veteran, and they still at least have Ritter as an insurance policy.
I think you also have to throw New Orleans into the quarterback mix as well. If they don't land Derek Carr, they're going to be forced to make a move to get a quarterback. And if Derek Carr isn't available or is signed with somebody else, you might see New Orleans in the fray as well, making these quarterbacks going up in the draft.
Yeah, the problem is their draft situation isn't very good. So, and they do have Winston on contract for one more year. So they actually, because they're going to be a few teams that are going to look ahead at next year's draft class, and they're going to go, hey, that's also a very good draft class. Some believe it might even be better. So maybe a team like the Saints decide to wait until next year, go with Winston for one more year, based on how far they are down in the draft slotting. But definitely another team to keep an eye on.
Let me ask you this. Dennis Allen drafted Derek Carr when he was the head coach of the Raiders. Would it only seem natural that these two would form a marriage in New Orleans?
Yeah, I don't know what their relationship is. Sometimes we say that a lot in media. Oh, these two guys, they worked together before a reunion. Well, sometimes guys hate each other. So sometimes that works against you. I don't know in the case of Carr and Allen what their relationship was. If he was willing to take a visit down there, I'm going to guess it's pretty strong. So, yeah, that would help. But again, I don't see why, guys, I've said this on our show with you guys before. Why is any team trading for Derek Carr?
I know.
Why is any team giving up assets? They have to cut him by like Wednesday of next week. So why would Derek, otherwise they owe him, more money. So why would Derek Carr want to get traded? Why would Derek Carr want to go to a team that had to give up a player or draft picks to get him? Those are assets that are going to help him when he's on the team. So he should do a wink, wink, nod, nod. I'm going to sign with you guys. Don't trade for me. And then the 2 draft picks you were going to trade to get me are now a receiver that I can throw to and a blocker in front of me. So I think anybody would be nuts to trade for Derek Carr.
What about the head coaching situation? Because we still don't know about a few teams. I'm not sure how excited I am if I'm a Colt fan about the possibility of Jeff Saturday getting that job. And Arizona, so fill me in here, Ryan. Of course, Mike Kafka, Giants OC, is apparently one of the 2 remaining possibilities in Arizona.
Well, there's obviously more than 2 remaining possibilities now, because I think Schefter reported last week or earlier this week that they're not going to make a hire till after the Super Bowl. So if they were going to hire either Lou Anarumo or Mike Kafka, they could do that this week. There's no reason to wait for after the Super Bowl. So I'm thinking they probably want to interview either Shane Steichen or Eric Bieniemy or Jonathan Gannon. One of these guys, they want to expand the search to one of the guys you're not allowed to interview while they're in the Super Bowl. Could the job go to Kafka? Sure. Those other guys could be unimpressive. But if they were sold on Kafka, they would hire him now. They wouldn't be waiting until next week.
And what about the Colts?
Look, I've said all along that I think Wink Martindale is the perfect fit for the Colts, the Giants' defensive coordinator. I think he's the perfect fit. He's going to hit it off. Very similar personalities with Jim Irsay. The question is if a 59-year-old defensive coordinator is going to get hired to be a head coach in the NFL. It's a young offensive coach's game. And so those are two strikes against Wink. He's not young, and he is an offense. Where do I think they go? I think they probably want Steichen too. But remember, Frank Reich was the Eagles' offensive coordinator. So their last hire was the same position. Are they going to make the same move to Shane? That shouldn't impact them. You should hire the best guy. But when push comes to shove, that could hurt Shane there as well.
Well, it definitely shouldn't be an issue as far as Martindale's concerned if they go ahead and are serious about hiring Saturday. So, because that, even though he's younger, that would be even a bigger controversial move, don't you think? Don't you think Colt fans? I don't know. I'm not a Colt fan. I'll talk to Jake Arthur about it, but I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, he's a legend there. The owner loves him. Look, he's certainly in the running. He got the interim job out of nowhere, so you can't rule it out.
Nope.
I think it would be a colossal mistake for the Colts to hire Jeff Saturday. We saw proof in the pudding for what happened when he took over the program. He's not ready. He's not a head coach. He's likable is what he is. And I just think it would be a mistake if they did that.
All right.
Yeah. It's hard to argue that it would be a mistake after watching it last year.
Okay, so since we have, again, a New York writer here, what do you think? I always take out any sort of biases I have, but I just think if Aaron Rodgers is going to decide where he wants to go, it just looks to me like the two obvious landing spots are either the Raiders or the Jets. And to me, it just seems more likely, unless he just doesn't want to go to New York, that the Jets are a better fit because they're closer talent-wise, especially on defense, got enough weapons on offense, that he would look at that and say, okay, if I want to go somewhere, where can I win now? To me, I think it's the Jets. And am I being biased there by saying that?
No, I don't think so. I mean, that Nathaniel Hackett being there is obviously is a huge comfort level for Aaron Rodgers. But Devontae Adams being in Las Vegas is obviously a huge comfort level for Aaron Rodgers. Yeah. So, no, I mean, the Jets are probably the better team than the Raiders, but it's not apples and oranges. I mean, if the Raiders get Aaron Rodgers, they're better than the Jets.
Of course.
So he'll sway that decision one way or the other. So, look, when he was at that golf tournament last week and somebody asked him for an update and he said, I'm not going to San Francisco, that set up my alarms. Like, why is that even on his mind? Why is he even thinking about San Francisco? So to me, I was like, I took that as I'm not going to San Francisco. I took that as San Francisco's in play too.
Okay. All right, so we'll see.
Hey, while we're on the subject, let me ask you this, Ryan. Am I wrong in thinking that the best quarterback option for San Francisco is Jimmy Garoppolo, the guy that's been there, done it, knows Kyle Shanahan? We know Brock Purdy was a good fill-in, okay? We don't know about Trey Lance. If Jimmy Garoppolo is healthy, is it possible that he could be quarterbacking the 49ers next year?
No, it's not possible. Shanahan already ruled it out, which you would never do if the door was open even the slightest. You would never rule it out. He said, somebody asked him at the end of the season press conference, and he said, basically, no, he won't be back, which you would never do if it was even a 2% chance. You would say, we'll see. So for him to rule it out won't happen. Now, your original question, Mark, was, are you wrong to think he's the best option? No, I don't think you're wrong to think he's the best option. He's just not going to be an option. But could he be better than Trey Lance and Brock Purdy? Absolutely. He definitely could be. The way he's not the best option is if Aaron Rodgers is in the mix.
Sure.
If Rodgers is in the mix, then he's the best option. If not, there's Garoppolo. If I had to bet one of these three quarterbacks will be the best next year, Purdy, Lance, and Garoppolo, I'd pick Garoppolo no matter where he goes.
Sure, I would too.
I think it's going to take. I don't think there's any way Green Bay is going to allow and facilitate a trade for Aaron Rodgers to go to the 49ers. There's just no way.
I mean, you facilitate a trade for the best pick you get.
If
the Jets offer you a third and the 49ers offer you a first, you taking the third?
I can't see it. I just can't.
Okay.
We're going to give him to our a team that's going to be right in front of our faces, and we're going to have Jordan Love and you're going to have Aaron Rodgers for the next couple of years. I mean,
how did it work out when they?
By the way, I don't think there's any way that the Jets wouldn't be able to offer enough. Just so you know, like you were saying, Jets offer a third. There's no way the Jets are not offering a first. There's just no way.
So I'm just saying.
I see your point. Yes.
My point is you're taking the best offer.
But so, no San Francisco.
The Vikings. The Packers dealt for 3 years with Brett Favre on the Vikings. They could deal with Aaron Rodgers.
But it wasn't their choice.
No, but they dealt with it. So
if it's not their choice, then yeah. But if they're just going, all right, San Francisco, we're making this trade. Okay, we'll see you guys the next couple of years. We'll go head to head with you. No. I mean, it would have to be, and I would agree with you, it would have to be so much better than the other teams. Then I'd be okay. Not under no circumstances, I wouldn't say that, but it would have to be, wow, they're just blowing us out of the water with this offer. We have to take it. We'll live with it. So
yeah.
Okay.
Hey guys, moving away from the quarterback situation, let me ask Ryan, what is the feeling on Radio Row, or at least in Phoenix, about these two football teams? Is there a unanimous feeling or a better feeling about one team over the other? Win this game?
People are really interested in how healthy the Eagles are. Like that, they're going to have their full 53-man roster available. Nobody's really banged up. People think that'll be a very big advantage in the game. Obviously, especially when you contrast it with Patrick Mahomes' ankle and the unknown that is that. And his scrambling ability. So people seem to think that'll be a big advantage. Me, personally, I'd never pick against Mahomes, but people do. I think that is the main reason here why people are leaning Eagles is Mahomes isn't healthy and everyone on the Eagles is.
So that is basically what you're, not just you're hearing that, but you're saying that if you took a straw poll, you think it's Eagles. They're siding with the Eagles to win the game.
I think most people I've talked to here are leaning Eagles. Yeah.
Okay. As far as that is concerned, anytime for me, and we're going to get into this, but for me, I started with the two spots on the team that you always have to start with in any big game: head coach, quarterback. And as good as Hurst is, fact is, the Chiefs have the edge in both categories. And
I'm curious, why do you say that? What makes you say Andy Reid is an edge over Nick Sirianni? Like Mahomes is clearly the edge in the big game quarterback. Andy Reid's playoff record is atrocious.
Oh, he still has a Super Bowl trophy.
Sure. Okay.
And he's also, as Mark pointed out,
he should have about 6 Super Bowl trophies.
That's okay, but it also pointed out, Mark, that he's also a very good playoff dog, isn't he?
Andy Reid's really good as an underdog in any role, as is Patrick Mahomes, obviously. And the thing that sticks out about Reid that everybody beats to death is his record when given extra time to prepare for football games. But I'm going to say this to that. And as good as he's been with extra rest, he's mediocre or poor when his opponent also has rest or an extra week to get ready for him as well. In fact, he has a losing record doing just that. So if you want to make rest a factor for Andy Reid here, you're parking up the wrong tree.
Yeah, look, it's for me, and maybe in 5 years, we'll look back and say, well, man, see, Nick Sirianni, great coach. Like when Belichick won his first, look, great coach. But, I mean, it just is what it is. I mean, come on. Andy Reid's a better coach than him right now, as of today. That's not even an argument.
I mean, he has a better profile. I don't know that he'll have a better Sunday. I can't say that. No, I definitely cannot say that.
Of course,
sure.
He's Andy
Reid's all, well, no, that's what you said.
We don't know who will have a better Sunday. Anybody could have a bad day or a good day. I'm just saying, you can't tell me that if you took that, anybody would say, yeah, Nick Sirianni is a better coach than Andy Reid.
No, Andy Reid's a Hall of Fame coach, but he loses a lot of big games, and Nick Sirianni does a lot of crazy things. So Nick Sirianni could definitely outcoach Andy Reid. I don't see Jalen Hurts outplaying Patrick Mahomes under any circumstance. Nick Sirianni could outcoach Andy Reid.
And of course he could. Absolutely. All I'm saying is when you check the boxes and you got the two teams there, head coach Andy Reid, Aaron Rodgers, a quarterback, Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes, and you're going to go with a lot of other Eagles probably have checks over the Chiefs more than the Eagles have over the Chiefs, but the two spots that I'm saying are the top. Andy Reid has been around a lot longer. He's been in Super Bowls.
So
he's won a Super Bowl.
You're saying you can't pick anybody over Andy Reid besides Bill Belichick. That's what you're saying.
In this matchup.
But you're saying any coach, basically, because he's got the credentials. You can't pick any coach over Andy Reid except Bill Belichick.
No.
In any match.
No, in this matchup. Remember, we're going with a guy who's never even coached in a playoff game until this year.
Give me another. So who else would you pick over Andy Reid in a playoff game besides Bill Belichick?
Who would I pick over Andy Reid?
Yeah.
Let's see. I would pick Sean Payton over Andy Reid. He's back. We forgot to talk about that.
But he doesn't have the resume that Andy Reid does.
Not many people do.
No, exactly. But Sean Payton's a better coach.
Okay.
That's what I feel. Okay. I would not pick Andy Reid over Mike Vrabel. I'd probably pay it even. That's how much I respect Vrabel.
Okay.
Let's see. Oh, Harbaugh. Harbaugh's a better coach than Reid, I believe. I think Tomlin, I'd put him probably even, maybe even better. So there are a few. They're out there. But Andy Reid is definitely on the 80 percentile. That I would pick Andy Reid over about 75 to 80% of the coaches out there in a big game situation.
I perfectly get where Ryan's coming with Sirianni here. Okay, we may not have seen the best of Nick Sirianni. Okay,
yeah,
we may not.
He's got his. Yeah. He's done nothing wrong. I think he's won more than two out of three games that he's coached with the Philadelphia Eagles. So to automatically put him in the rear view mirror way behind Andy Reid, I think is a mistake.
I never said way behind.
Well,
I check mark. What would you? All right, let me ask you. Check mark. Who gets the edge? Andy Reid or Nick Sirianni?
Andy Reid for the experience. Okay.
That's
maybe
all I'm
not
saying.
The coaching ability.
That's all I'm saying. No. So,
yeah,
all right. No, wait. So you would, if you just in this game, who would you rather have as your head coach, Nick Sirianni or Andy Reid?
Who would I rather have?
This game Sunday, I'd take Nick Sirianni.
Okay, that's fine. I would take Andy Reid, and I'm not a big Andy Reid fan, please. But it's just that
now, if I need to,
he won his Super Bowl, and he's just a really good coach. You just can't deny it.
He's a really good. No, I wouldn't deny. He's a really good coach who loses a lot of big games.
Absolutely. Absolutely, he does. But keeping in mind that when he loses a lot of big games, it's usually to very good coaches and or quarterbacks. So we don't know it. Like I said, maybe Nick Sirianni is going to turn out to be a great head coach one day. It's possible. But this just shows you, too, that this is, without question, one of the most even Super Bowls that we've had in a long time. And we kind of talked about this last year. We were really debating which way to go. We did ultimately feel the Rams were the team of destiny and the better team at the time. But this year, it's even that much tougher. I mean, it's just, wow. I could imagine 50 people picking the Chiefs and 50 people picking Eagles.
Agreed.
So what is your stats telling you? Everything that you've got with the Playbook Super Bowl newsletter and everything that you've dived in and all the props and all the stats and everything, Mark, what does it tell you about who you think has the edge in the game?
Well, as we mentioned before, this game is incredibly even. From their records to the points they scored, which are identical, to the amount of Pro Bowl players they've had. They're both number one seeds. Their records against common opponents are almost mirror-like against one another. So it's kind of hard to put an edge between them two when you're putting them side by side that way. The differentiator to me, personally, is the defense. But the defense is the two football teams. And, I love the fact that The number one passing quarterback in yards for the season in the Super Bowl has never beat the Super Bowl that's had the number one pass defense like the Philadelphia Eagles do. They're going to see a defense unlike any they've seen here if they play to their level, obviously, in this Philadelphia Eagles. And I think the combination of the running game and the defense gives Philadelphia the edge for everything that it is that I do.
Yeah, that's and I'm also going to be very intriguing to see the matchup between the Chiefs supposedly have a top offensive line. Now, I don't think man for man they're elite, but they're a very good offensive line, especially in the middle of that group. And the Eagles, again, have one of, if not the best defenses because they rotate guys left and right on that defensive line. And like Ryan said, they're all healthy. So they got all their best guys out there. That's what's going to be the matchup. And you could possibly say the same thing on the flip side because we know how good the Eagles' offensive line is. And the Chiefs are going to have to put a lot of pressure on the Eagles in order for, Hurst to feel a little bit uncomfortable. So is that, though, where the edge lies, Ryan, is that the Eagles are just they're just a little bit better or that much better. They're so good both on the offensive line and the defensive line.
I don't know if I agree with that either, Craig. I got to tell you, look, the Eagles are built offensive line and defensive line. That's their strength. They've had two guys on each of those lines there for 10 years each, maybe more, 12 years each, with Kelsey and Lane Johnson, with Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham. And then they're so deep on the defensive line with Brandon Graham coming off the bench with 4 guys with 10 sacks each. But the Chiefs' offensive line is no slouch. I mean, this isn't the Chiefs' offensive line that, forced Patrick Mahomes to run for 497 yards behind the line of scrimmage when they couldn't hold up against the Bucs. This is a much different. This is Orlando Brown, who said this week, I was brought here to win a Super Bowl. This is Joe Tooney, who signed an $80 million contract. This is Trey Smith and Creed Humphrey. Creed Humphrey might be the best young center in the NFL. Like, this is a much better version of the Chiefs' offensive line than Patrick Mahomes had the last time America saw him in a Super Bowl.
No, and that's a great point because, Mark, you were talking about that on the show yesterday with Victor on Playbook Experts' YouTube channel about Patrick Mahomes' Super Bowl record and his stats. And I think it is a little bit unfair to grade his stats in the Tampa Bay game because of how atrocious their offensive line situation was.
Yeah, it was what it was, and he obviously wasn't able to perform. He started 2 Super Bowl games, and he's had 2 terrible passer ratings in both of those games. It's 64.2 combined in his career. He was 78-1 against Frisco and 52-3 against Tampa Bay. So will it get any better in this particular game against this defense? That's my main question, because he's going to see a pass rush unlike he saw in those first 2 football games. That's my main concern. The other little thing that I'm looking at here, Ryan, is today is the day, and I don't think they've announced it yet, that Patrick Mahomes is going to be named the MVP for the league.
Later tonight.
Or tonight, yes, exactly. And from a study that I did, there have been 21 quarterbacks in the Super Bowl that have been MVP quarterbacks, and they have not fared well in these games. They've lost more than 2 out of 3 games.
Is that like the Heisman jinx?
Sort of like the Heisman jinx, in a shorter period of time, if you will. Their average QB rating is 85.3 in those particular football games. Do you see Mahomes succumbing to something like this, or do you think his talent just throws it out the window and says, I'm Patrick Mahomes, and you can stick those stats right up where the sun don't shine?
Yeah, I like stats of head-to-head matchup. I like stats of players in the game. Historical stats don't mean much to me. What, Ken Anderson did in the Super Bowl when he was an MVP has no effect on what Joe Burrow did in the Super Bowl. And what Patrick Mahomes is going to do in the Super Bowl as an MVP. To me, one doesn't have anything to do with the other. I get it. That is a trend. But to me, it's much more Patrick Mahomes against the Eagles than it is what some quarterback in the 70s did when he was the MVP.
Let me leave you with this, and you might maybe be able to share the story. But Joe Namath, when he proclaimed that the Jets were going to win the Super Bowl, and the Jets won the Super Bowl, they didn't win the Super Bowl because of Joe Willie Namath, okay? He did not have a good game. It was Earl Morrall who stunk the joint up, is what happened. Earl Morrall, quarterback rating was 4.4.
And he also ran the ball well.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. But the turnovers were the big thing. Yep.
Yeah, exactly right. So I'm just saying that Joe Willie's proclamation wasn't what he proclaimed to be. That's all.
The Chiefs could win the game because Chris Jones dominates the Eagles' offensive line. I mean, they don't have to win because of Patrick Mahomes. They could win the game because, one of their, Frank Clark has a sack fumble touchdown. They have other good players. I mean, they could win the game because Sky Moore has a punt return like he did at the end of the Bengals game. There's other ways to win that aren't Patrick Mahomes. But I will say the Eagles, if you threw out the quarterbacks, the Eagles have the much better team. So there's much more ways. The Eagles have the better running backs. The Eagles have the better secondary. So the Eagles have more ways to win the game.
And the other thing that we'll have to see, and I think this is why I think it's important that the Chiefs get off to a good start if they win this game, is that they do have the advantage as far as coach and quarterback Super Bowl as well, Super Bowl experience. So we don't know how that's going to come into play. Maybe it comes into play early. Maybe it takes Hurst a little while to kind of get the nerves to unsettle. And that's why I think if the Chiefs win this game, I really think they need to have the lead early. I think they have to take advantage of that early situation that most of these Eagles, especially the quarterback, have not been through before. If the Eagles get up to a high-flying start, I just think it's going to be really hard for the Chiefs to win that game. Because, again, I think the nerves will be gone.
An Eagle defense that would go out and support that lead is primarily what would happen, right?
Yeah, because and you know what? And I know we say this all the time, but these two teams are not running teams, but it just shows you that chances are, if one of the teams has a good running day, probably going to win. Because they're so good in the passing game that if you allow them to run the game as well, you probably have no chance. So
Philadelphia 14-0 this year when they ran for 100 yards or more. That's a big stat. All three of their losses came when they didn't run the ball for 100 yards. So that could be a telltale in this game as well.
Is there any talk? A couple more things before we close this Super Bowl preview show. Any talk about Andy Reid going up in the Super Bowl against the Philadelphia Eagles? I mean, how ironic is that really? Is it just so far along? Is it just so many years ago that nobody's really talking much about it? Or is that really is something that they're talking about in Philadelphia?
I don't know what they're talking about in Philadelphia, but in Arizona, it's the number 2 storyline.
Oh, yeah.
I thought you were kidding at first. If he gets asked about it like 7 times a day.
I stay away. Trust me, I haven't watched 1 minute of Super Bowl coverage. It's just I don't need to do that. So
he gets asked 7 to 10 times a day about coaching the Eagles, his departure from the Eagles, coaching Kelsey and Fletcher Cox and Graham. No, he gets asked. It's probably the second biggest storyline here for sure is Andy Reid's history against the Eagles. He speaks so fondly of Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman. And don't forget, Kansas City's general manager, Brett Veach, is a former Eagles front office guy too. So there's a lot of embedded between the two franchises.
Interesting sidebar note there, Ryan. Andy Reid has coached 6 games in his career, 3 with Philadelphia against Kansas City, which he won, and 3 with Kansas City against Philadelphia, which he's won. So Andy Reid has won all 6 of those games against each of those 2 football teams.
That's a great nugget. That's a great stat.
Yep. So only Andy Reid will beat Andy Reid. Okay.
So and knowing the relationship you mentioned that Andy Reid has talked about, do you think that it's one of those? Of course, if he wins the Super Bowl, it's going to be extra special and sweet that he did it against the Eagles, or do you think he just has so much respect for them that? Yeah, it's about winning Super Bowls. It's not about sticking it to the Eagles.
I think somewhere in between. I mean, I think in his heart of hearts, yeah, of course, the team that fired you, it would be sweet to beat them in a Super Bowl. But it is not. He does not have the animosity towards them that like, Bill Belichick has towards the Jets, or that, I don't know, Mike McCarthy has towards the Packers. Like, it's more respect than hate, but yeah, sure. Of course, would you rather beat the team that fired you, or is it more meaningful to beat the, I don't know, the Cowboys in the Super Bowl? It probably is more meaningful to beat the Eagles.
All right, let's go with picks. So, I think based on our conversation, I'm going to say Chiefs, Eagles.
I took the Chiefs.
You did take the Chiefs. Wow. Okay. Wow. It sounds like you were taking the Eagles.
Never bet against Patrick Mahomes. I took the Chiefs 24-20. I think the game honestly is going to be decided by not Travis Kelce, not Chris Jones, by somebody doing something great, like by some version of who was the tight end who threw the Philly special touchdown pass?
For the Eagles?
Yeah.
Not Zach Ertz.
Trey Burton.
Oh, well, one of those guys, you mean? Okay.
Yes, that's what I'm. Yeah, by some lesser known player doing some sort of trick play, whether maybe it's Kenneth Gainwell on a halfback option or something like that. Maybe it's Sky Moore on a punt return. Some sort of bold call, trick play, fake field goal, fake punt, reverse, something like that decides this game. Both these coaches are fourth down gambling play artists. I think some variable gets injected into the game, and that gives some team the lift, and then you bet on the best quarterback, and that's Patrick Mahomes.
So, Mark, you're the only one. You taking the Eagles?
I'm going to be with the Eagles here. Now, I bet against Patrick Mahomes in the 2 Super Bowl games that he's played in and cashed both of those tickets. I'm not going to back away here right now.
Well, you're talking about with the spread. I'm talking about who's winning the game.
That's
right?
true. Okay. But still, for Philadelphia to beat the spread here, they're going to have to win this game, number one, obviously, and then win it by a field goal. The other thing that I'm sort of fading here is that the last 8 times that number one seed has played number one seed in the Super Bowl, the favorite has lost all 8 times in a row. That favors your Patrick Mahomes side of the game.
Wow.
But I'm going to fade that as well. I'm going with the defense and the running game. Give me Philadelphia.
Okay. And can you leave us with your favorite prop? I was listening to all your props, and you can get all those props on Mark's Playbook Experts show. We have a link to it on this show, on this page, in the description area, so check that out. My favorite prop, I believe you said the last 13 teams who scored last won the game.
It's 13 in a row, 15 of the last 16. The team that has scored the last score of the game has won the game. Exactly right.
And the number is what, around minus 150 or minus 160?
Oh, it's closer to minus 200.
Oh, it is.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a very, very popular, very, very popular prop.
Can you give us one that's closer to even?
Well, I would say, will there be a missed extra point in the game? Everybody anticipates with the longer extra point, there's going to be a missed extra point. Only 2 times in the last 21 Super Bowls has there been a missed extra point, so don't fall for that. I would say no on missed extra point.
And that's about even.
That's pretty close to even. Yeah.
All right, so no missed extra point. I like that. And did you come across any yourself, Ryan?
Props?
Yeah.
No, I'm not a props guy.
So you didn't hear? I know, neither am I. I usually just, this is the only time of year I ever actually dip my toes into any of them. So, and that's probably the only one I'll do, is the one that Mark just mentioned. I did do overtime, though, the year that the Patriots went to overtime. I did do that one, because I did it like every year for like 3 years. I figured one of these years they're going to go to overtime, and I think they were like 8-1 to go to overtime. So
that's the only year they ever did it. Correct.
Yeah. So, but can't really do that anymore. But who knows? Maybe we'll see that again on Sunday. Ryan, appreciate it. I know you're real busy. Obviously, you're there at Radio Row. What's the storylines? What are you working on? Anything in particular for the New York Post?
I did a big Jordan Mailata piece today. I was proud.
Oh, did we just miss him? This
Well,
this is like that
I would
satellite
say,
hookup. When you
I would say if we missed him, we got the best of Ryan because we had him for pretty much the whole show.
Okay. Well, look, if he pops on while we're closing the show, we'll see. Oh, there you are, Ryan. So you were saying we missed you. You said that you had this report, this article that you're just putting out there with Mulata. Oh, we missed him. All right. Anyway, let me. Well, there's nothing I can do. You guys are hooked together. All right, Mark. Anything else besides the fact that it's Thursday, right? So there's still a few days left for the Playbook Super Bowl Guide newsletter.
There is. You can download the Super Bowl Guide newsletter with all these great props, all these stats, everything we're talking about here. It's available online at playbooksports.com. And also, an interesting sidebar note of something that I'm doing. It's called the WIN Report, WIN, which is an acronym for What's Important Now. And if you go to playbooksports.com and click on the WIN Report, you'll find a treasure trove of great stats and things you didn't know. So if you're at playbooksports.com, check out the WIN Report.
Awesome. And again, description area, we'll have a link, very easy. Click that. You go to the show that Mark did with Victor yesterday. Andy Iskoe was on that as well. Jim Feist was on that one as well. So just really a great Super Bowl preview, a broadcast video. You can check that out. It gives you just tons of props and stats and trends and everything that you want to get ready for the Super Bowl. So, Mark, we'll see you on the other side when we talk a little bit about wrapping up the season, including the Super Bowl. But more importantly, the next time we talk, we'll be talking about college basketball. So the transition will take full effect by the time we talk again.
We'll be hooping it up, Greg. I look forward to that.
Awesome. From Marc Lawrence, Ryan Dunleavy, live at Radio Row down at Super Bowl headquarters in Arizona. I'm Greg DePalma. We'll see you next time.